Hey dudes, today Panasonic announced their new lineup of cameras, which included the GH5 Mark II and the announcement of the GH6, which is in development and should be shipping later this year. So you could say, I'm a bit excited about the news. So let's get into it. 20 years ago, Lumix was invented, and since then, Panasonic has led the industry in mirrorless cameras and camera technology. And today, Panasonic announced a brand new GH5 Mark II, another great lightweight portable camera that's even more now power-packed than its predecessor, especially in terms of the new dual IBIS system, which benefits because of the smaller sensor, and it also gets benefits of having faster readout speeds and reduced rolling shutter. Mainly though, my take of the announcement of the GH5 Mark II is that it's targeted at streamers or live content creators, but it also has further improvements like uncropped 4K, the ability to shoot Vlog, Cine D and Cinelike 2, along with the ability to shoot 6K anamorphic in 10-bit recording. The GH5 Mark II has a 6-stop IBIS system, unlimited record times, and is dust, splash and freeze proof. The promo videos showed the same great colors that Panasonic users have become accustomed to. Panasonic also announced a free firmware update for the GH5S to record ProRes RAW via the Ninja 5 recorder, which I think a lot of people that are GH5 and GH5S users have been waiting for. If you're in this system and you've been waiting for more lenses, Panasonic did announce a new 25-50 f1.7 Leica DG zoom lens. But the biggest news is the teasing announcement of the GH6, which we now know is in development and will be delivered later this year in 2021. It will have a brand new Venus engine running the camera. It will record 4K up to 120p, do internal DCI Ultra HD 422 10-bit, and record 5.7K at up to 10-bit at 60 frames per second. And the estimated price is going to be around $2,500 US. So, with all this in mind, let's analyze what we do know from the very limited information that Panasonic released today. The biggest advantage that the GH6 will have over the S5 and S1H is its ability to record 4K in 120p. There is no indication about whether the GH6 will be able to record RAW via HDMI, but I think it's safe to assume that they have announced it in the GH5 Mark II and that the GH6 obviously will supersede the GH5 Mark II, so I think we can safely speculate that it will do RAW via HDMI. Whether that's just ProRes RAW or whether it does RAW as well, we'll just have to wait and see. It's still a bit too early. There has also been no mention of whether there's been any improvements to the autofocus, which the GH line of cameras has not done very well with in the past. There was also no mention of audio at all, whether there's been improvements or whether there's been physical changes to the camera body about how audio is implemented into the GH5 Mark II or the GH6. Again, we're just going to have to wait and see what actually is announced in the coming months. The other big question for me is, will there be an internal ND? Because at the price point, this camera is in direct competition with the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro. And the Pocket 6K Pro is also a Super 35mm sensor. It doesn't require a separate audio adapter, it shoots internal RAW and has internal NDs. So it would be amazing to see Panasonic be the first company to put NDs into a mirrorless body and retain the IBIS. Just a thought. So some will say that Panasonic has painted themselves into a corner because the GH6 is going to have to compete with full-featured, full-frame options from Sony and Canon, as well as their own S1, S5 and S1H. But for me, I really think that Micro Four Thirds has a place in the modern world of cinematography. Micro Four Thirds is great for macro and wildlife work. Times have changed, yes. Everything has become Super 35 and full frame, and Micro Four Thirds is definitely being left behind. But I think it's great to see Panasonic still supporting the format because not everybody out there wants a large censored camera. It's just horses for courses. The hardest thing, I think, for Panasonic is that Micro Four Thirds used to have such a massive advantage when it came to size and cost, but Blackmagic Design has eroded that advantage over the past 8 years. And Panasonic's own S15 is almost $1,000 US cheaper than what the GH6 is presumably going to start retailing for. And it is actually smaller than the original GH5. What I'm hoping for is that the higher capacity batteries in the GH5 Mark II and the higher frame rate viewfinder will find its way into the GH6, along with potentially a electronic variable ND and some internal audio functions and hopefully some internal RAW, because these are the things that are keeping me away from purchasing the camera. I try and stick with cameras that do RAW internally. But look guys, I'll have more on this in the coming days as there is going to be more information that will come to light, obviously, as this is just the initial announcement that Panasonic has made. So make sure that you're subscribed for further updates. That's it. Bye for now, guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of the announcement of the GH5 Mark II and the GH6 and whether you're interested in picking one up for your cinematography needs.